All right, well, thank you everyone for coming to today's Expo. We are now at the expert panel time. So we've had a full day of sessions and discussion. And I tell you, I've taken probably about 10 pages worth of notes here because I am learning something new every minute. But we've made our introductions. So I welcome our panelists. We have Margot Smith from RSL Clubs and Services, Jason Frost from Patria Centre, Wagga, Rhondda Vanzella, National President for War Widows, Michael Ducie, CEO Legacy Sydney, and Jeanette Davies, Veterans Centre Australia Care Coordinator. Community. See, it's been a long day. Here we go. Community Engagement Coordinator. But look, today, a lot of things have come out. We have spoken a lot about understanding individual needs, the importance of goal setting and understanding the community landscape, sharing of information, and assessing what motivates changes in behaviour. And as veteran support service organisations, it's really important that we know, A, where to look for information, B, how to build confidence for those people who are seeking support from us, and also reflect on how do we work together. And today's a great demonstration of how we've been able to come together, how we've been able to build resilience for our beneficiaries. So, community of practice. I will ask each of you, what does that mean? What do you think the objective of a community of practice is? And what role will it play in our veteran community? Margot, I'll welcome you first.
Sure. I think for us at RSL and Services Clubs Association, it's about engaging with our communities, and the veteran and their families is at the heart of that. That's where our heritage is. That's where our history is. We were formed as destinations and venues for veterans and their families. So for us, it's about us collaborating with veterans and their families themselves, but also other organisations to make sure that we're relevant, we're catering from both a career perspective. So we'd love to welcome veterans and their families to seek careers with RSL and Services Clubs, and also from a community perspective. So coming into clubs and, enjoying the facilities, whether it's the gym or the coffee shop or, there's so many. I'm new to the role 5 months in, and, every club, RSL and Service Club, has something different. And so, there might be mahjong, there might be croquet, there might be bowls. So for us, it's about making sure that everyone out there knows who we are and what we have available, and that we're making sure that we're relevant, so that you're giving us feedback about what you're looking for in your local club.
That's fantastic. Now, we will touch on how veterans and families can engage with clubs and services from a professional development perspective, and the careers and the opportunities that are available. So we'll touch on that in a minute. But I will hand over to Rhondda. Rhondda, last 2 years have been very interesting for the veteran community space and globally.
And I just want to congratulate everybody today. They've been fantastic, and everyone's doing a fantastic job. I guess I'm probably a little bit older than everybody, and I probably come to this from a different perspective. And so often we hear people say, we do these inquiries, we do things, and the recommendations are not taken up. I want you to go back and to think about, when we think about community of services, I want you to go back and look at the 2 recommendations from the BOSS report, 8.3 and 8.4. I won't go to them now if you haven't read them, but I recommend that you go and have a look at that. And I know the Royal Commission is looking at those 2 they're looking at all the recommendations. But basically it is, how can we come together out of our silos and come together and say, well, I'll do this, you do that, you're the expertise on that, and I'm just doing this little bit, right? It's about respecting everybody, right? And no one owns it. It needs to be an independent body that, and if you sit, most of you probably sat through the Royal Commission as I have online most days, and every single mother, veteran, or when there's an episode, they all say they didn't know where to go.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a big problem. We all have the services and we all know they're there, but they don't know where to go. And that's the question in this, I think, going forward. How do we know that all of those people who want the services know where to go? I'll just leave that as a question, Nikki, for the time being. I've got some other thoughts later on.
All good. All right. Michael, thank you for participating in that last session. Talk to me about community of practice. Legacy does it well.
Thanks, Nikki. There's a couple of things, I think, a couple of dimensions, I think. From an LCS and Legacy Club Services perspective, and I'll start at the sort of shared service kind of level. Legacy Club Services obviously is a shared service company, so the intent is that not many are aware that we provide back-end services and organisational support to 6 participating clubs and more than 16 further legacy clubs across Australia, as far as ICT and CRMs and a whole range of other things as well. And really for us, that collaboration and support for each other and optimising, in essence, what can be necessary costs of doing business that draw away from your ability to be able to actually provide very direct support. The way that we've approached it here in New South Wales in large part has been to actually look at how we can create efficiencies by that back-end single service model, and that's worked very well for us and is continuing to grow. So that's part of it. As far as the community of practice is concerned, one of the things that we would recognise is that we've all got fabulous people. We've got some amazing people who are distributed across all of our organisations and who do incredible work and have deep expertise in a variety of different areas. I guess the key there is that we don't all have that expertise. We need to rely upon each other, and we need to understand where we can go to get that understanding and to grow our own capability. And I think that, I mentioned T and our 4G family support group and the work that they do. And that's a really good example. I know Kathy Avery in our advocacy team has also, had a thought leadership role and driven a lot of national discussion around some of the advocacy work that we're doing. And they're 2 good examples where, in essence, it's about almost an open door approach, which is we're not suggesting that we know all of the answers to all of the questions, but we've developed a degree of expertise and specialisation in these areas that we are very, very willing to share with other organisations, because this is about us all growing and all of us getting to a point where we're optimising the services and the support, obviously, to our respective beneficiaries. I think to Rhonda's point earlier, my view is that we have seen government both at a state level and a national level start to look at shared service models, or not so much shared service models, but putting the customer, terrible expression, but it is right in the context of government services, putting the customer in the centre and all of the support agencies basically treating them as an individual. What we effectively do is we treat our beneficiaries at present as multiple entities. We all separately engage and we all look to provide services, whether it's to the veteran or whether it's to the family or to the children, or in a variety of different ways. And I think what we're being asked to do very gently at this point in time is actually understand how we can come together and put our beneficiaries, our veterans and the veterans' families in the centre of the circle and actually 100%. Collectively work together at supporting them. And that's recognising that there are different organisations that do things that we don't do. We take our patch, we look after that part of the support framework that needs to be delivered, and we hand off and work with somebody else for them to deliver the piece that they actually are expertise, they have a degree of expertise in. So I've covered a couple of areas there, but it's all around, really that community of practice, but also how do you leverage that and build those models so that we can arrive at a point where we're not tripping over each other, we're actually putting 100%. The beneficiary at the centre and working very deliberately to be able to optimise what we do and how we do it as a group rather than just individuals.
100%.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. And look, that's, mutually reinforcing activities and programs, building that economy of scale, bigger reach. But can I just throw to Jason, your ex-service yourself, why is it that people don't know where to go?
Yeah, thanks, Nikki. So I'm kind of wearing a few hats here from the fence sheds perspective and also the Patria Centre, plus being in regional New South Wales. When I discharged myself, we're involved with a lot of the kind of trademark organisations to try and get things up and running. But because the services that we required literally didn't exist, and this is where I'm thinking it comes back down to these grassroots communities. There's a reason we've established 2 organisations in Wagga now to fill that gap. And I think there's a big reason why there's 5,000 organisations around this country that are registered as an organisation that wants to support veterans, and not all of them might be doing it in the way that's kind of relevant. I think it highlights that these grassroots communities are getting together. They're coming up with initiatives. They're reaching out for things that aren't there. And we've got some of the most initiative-driven people on our planet that have been in Defence Force. Mm-hmm. We should be encouraging these guys like they do up in Queensland to get up these new initiatives and supporting them off the ground, because I think that's the biggest thing is we need to listen to the communities of the people that are actually dealing with this day in and day out. See what they need in their own areas, because we've, like I said, we've managed to establish the shed here. We've managed to bring in a heap of medical services that are hugely lacking. We've had to create our own data with that, or kind of gather our own data with our own communities to identify this, because every time we were speaking to DVA and every time we're speaking to state authorities, they tell us there's no need or there's no evidence of it. So we really need to get these communities together to provide the data so we can actually do these things right, because all of us have got the right intentions. And like you said, there's many organisations doing many things. There's no point us reinventing the wheel. We've got you guys in support to be able to do a lot of the things that we can't do. And we're learning so much down here. We've got some of Australia's best doctors and specialists now dealing directly with these DVA patients and having absolutely amazing results. And it's huge. Like, we're trying to get this out to the public now to show that there are solutions out there for people. We just need to listen to the specialists that are doing that and provide that education across the board. Sorry, I went on a bit of a tangent there, but what was the question?
Jason, can I just say, lovely to see you, Jason. Last time I saw you, that was all a vision, and now you're making it happen. That's awesome.
Yeah, thanks, Rhondda. We're so close. It's insane. Yeah.
Right.
Oh, and Jeanette, I'll get to you in a sec, but just on that, Jason, so I know that Patria did an extensive survey in the Riverina area. So you've taken that data, you've reviewed it, you've assessed it, and now what? What's happening now?
So as far as we sit at the moment with an organisation, we're just about to very, very soon, as in toward the end of this month, we're exchanging a contract which will enable us to begin the building works. So out of that survey, we identified over 50% of veterans, this is off the top of my head in the data, over 50% of veterans were on a multitude of medications. 10% of them were on over, I think, 10 different medications, which is just phenomenal. There was a huge disconnect between lacking access to medical services, so guys having to rotate up through north to go to hospitals, 1.5 year wait lists to see some specialists and sites and doctors, and then GP wait lists upwards of months. So with the data that we've got there, we've managed to kind of reach out to the local community here with a number of organisations that have been incredibly supportive to get behind us to actually raise the deposit to purchase the property. So now that we've got the exchange happening this month, then we can start beginning the building works in there. We've got TMS Australia about to jump in themselves, and they're going to be providing a lot of new medical services here. We've got veterans waiting for these medical services that can't access them because there's no doctors able to bring them to the people in Wagga. So building this space here for these specialists to utilise. Plus, on top of that, we've managed to kind of working closely with the universities. So a lot of the information that we're able to gather from this new data, the universities can then record that data, provide it to hopefully DVA and organisations like yourselves, so we can actually get, and again, input from you guys. Data is key. And if we've got universities now, medical universities, and people involved that want to make a difference here, they want to gather that data. So the more that we can tie in with them. So we're very close to bringing in these initial services. And then as soon as we've got the green light for the building works, then we're able to open the doors for a lot of other of the medical practitioners there waiting.
That's brilliant. So yeah, and then I think you've demonstrated that. You know, you saw a need, you've gone out and you've talked to the community, and I think sometimes that's missed. You know, we as service providers, we go out and say, oh, we have so many clients on our books. That's great, but you need to talk to the people. You don't understand individual needs, and it comes back to what we were saying before. Jeanette, you have been out on the road, grassroots level, meeting people, linking people up, connecting, cooperating, collaborating. Tell me about it. What have you been doing?
So I'd just like to reiterate what Michael said about putting the individual at the centre. One of the things that was mentioned earlier on was one of my favourite words is serendipity, and that what we need to do is remove the serendipity from all of this. We need to find ways of, and again, going back to what you said there, Nikki, sometimes we refer to our clients in the broadest sense as being hard to reach. My contention would be they're not hard to reach, we're difficult to understand because we don't talk the same. We're doing the same stuff, but we kind of talk in different ways. I've had previous experience in the UK of working in children's services supporting a programme called Team and a Child, which was not about service delivery models, it was about understanding the needs of the individual child. And in this case, we can talk about the veteran. We understand what their needs are, we start and make those services work for them, not they have to fit into what that model looks like. So, you know, again, what Michael was talking about around that. And then going back to what Rhondda was saying, you know, I've listened to everything today, and the reoccurring message is it's about partnerships. We have to work together. We have to start and understand what's going on. We have to work in a way that is the right way for those individual veterans and families. And this has to be a whole of community response. And you know, Rhondda, you've mentioned the BOSS report, the previous report by Andrew Hocking, ganging up on the problems, recognise that there is a lot of organisations on the ground. And as Jason pointed out, they get created because veterans get really fed up that their voices aren't being heard. That was one of the things that was spoken about this morning. Make sure you listen to what veterans are saying. And that's what we do need to do, is listen to them. And if they're saying, you know, these things that you're offering me, they're not really what I want, so I'm going to set up a new ESO. And then if another organisation turns around and says, oh, there's too many ESOs, well, there's a reason for that. And it's about choice. Veterans need to have choice, and they will vote with their feet. They will look to where is providing them with the right services, and they have. And we talk about giving veterans and families self-determination, resilience, and yet we're asking them to fit into a narrow box. But what today has demonstrated very clearly is that there's an enormous willingness for people to work together. So connecting. We start to connect up, we collaborate, we start to do a bit of work, and then we cooperate. And cooperation is about shared values. It's about a shared ethos. And in reality, we've all got that. What we need to get rid of is some of those egos that prevent that from happening.
100%. 100%. I think what Jason said, and what has come out in a lot of these reports, and Jason mentioned the word data. We don't have a lot of data. We know what we do, but collectively, there's no data that you could go to the government and say X, Y, or Z. So when we collaborate and come together, it's almost like one door, many doors. And then from there, we start to collaborate data. And that data can be shared around all of us to make our decisions in our organisations as we respond to the data. And the likes of, all due respect, Jason being young, you know, they see things and and deal with things very different to my widows, who are all mostly Second World War widows with a sprinkling of young contemporary widows. So I think we have to respect that younger attitude. And I think when you talk about data, and all you who've gone to university and studied and everything, I've never done it, right? I've left school when I was 14. I think the Andrew Hocking report is a very good report that was done 5 years ago. It was never picked up like I believe it should have been. And the other thing, I just met someone the other day, and the book is called Analytics for Leaders. And if we start to look at some of these things and see where we can save money, where we can bring it all together. Now, this is a father of a wife of a veteran, right? So he has the family involvement and understanding about the veterans, but this is 25 years of his work. He's retired, he's in his 70s now. And I've been having some discussions with him, and it's a really interesting way to go about it. We need to look at the analytics, how we can go about it. And I don't really understand it because I've never been to university, but I'm sure those of you have had. But start to think about it in a different way, right? Hearing what you're saying, Jeanette, listening to them, but then using the technology to gather the data across all of us, right? I feel very strongly about that.
All right. Well, let's move to some questions. Margot, you've been very quiet, so I'm going to throw one your way.
Sure.
Here we go. Excuse me. Clubs are such an important part of the fabric of local communities, particularly in regional localities. The club grants process has been amazing in supporting impactful grassroots programs for veterans and families. Are there plans to strengthen this relationship, not just with the larger ESOs?
Oh, that's a curly question, Nikki. So the Margot Smith personal view, I'm hearing input from Jason and others about grassroots charities, and my personal view is that that's essential and important, because I think there are, like we've talked about, 5,000 ESOs because a need has emerged. But to Michael's point, there are possibly at times better ways for doing it to make sure that the funds are going to the people that need it, not in the administration of those ESOs. So I think what we've acknowledged today is that sometimes it's hard to navigate what's out there for everyone. So I think in part, and it's a long-winded answer, but in part there's probably awareness about communicating all the services that are available in the ESOs to check whether or not something already exists. And us all talking about what's happening and being really simple about how we're communicating what's happening to veterans and their families, to not reinvent the wheel. But equally, I do think it's incredibly important to make sure that we support grassroots ESOs, because there is a need and it's local, and often that's what clubs want to do, and they're there to do. The club grants are a local community program, and so they're put in place to support local and community veterans and services. So that will continue to happen. I think there's also other bodies and stakeholders. So RSL New South Wales exists, and sub-branches exist across the board, across all regions as well. And so that's a really important piece of the puzzle, and that engagement and making sure that both within clubs and also sub-branches, and I won't speak for RSL New South Wales, but ensuring that everyone's engaging with veterans and their families at all ages and stages. But in speaking to clubs, it's about us engaging with them from a club grants point of view, about engaging them from an activities point of view and a networking connection, combating whether or not it is social isolation or, mental health and connection and activity and all of those sorts of things, right through to employment, like I mentioned before. So, club grants are essential, and I think are a nice marriage with all the other services that exist, both through government and through all of the bodies here.
Go for it, Rhondda. I know you want to say something.
To say, if we go back to when there weren't club grants and the government through DVA did not give out grants, I actually think the way they're given out with no data is actually making us fight against each other to survive.
Mhm.
And I think that's where a lot of the unhappiness comes. Why did you get a grant? Why didn't I? Did you do it better? Are you doing better? But if there's no data, how can the government and or DVA, and we expect them to make those decisions and be fair, but I'm not sure it's that easy.
I think it's hard because we have a similar situation in a completely different sphere of clubs with regards to data. Data exists and is there, you know, and for, I don't know, bureaucratic, political reasons, I don't know, isn't shared more broadly. And I think some of these situations in this sphere, but also in a whole range of other spheres, could be solved, Rhondda, you're quite rightly, with being transparent about what that data looks like. And if we had access to where veterans were and their families so that we could provide services for them, everyone would be more efficient. We'd be able to speak more freely two-way, not just talking at veterans and their families, like we've said, about what they need. But yeah, I think
you need to give them choice. They
Yeah.
need to have choice to go into something, look at what you provide, look what I provide, and choose. Because at different stages in life, as we all know, you know, first 10 years we have marriage and kids and we move on from there, and then, you know, it moves in sections. So there are all these veterans out there at many different levels in their need and support. So we need to bring them together, let all those organisations, and let them choose. And it's a very different way, and it's getting outside of the silos and being open and honest. And I'm not educated to be able to do it. It's just a practical sense that, but, you know, get some people that are educated, whether it's through analytics, we look at it, and where can we save money by, if we all look at the millions of dollars over the years that we spend on staff, but there's the staff doing the same job here and there's the staff doing the same job there. Maybe we can share that and then let them choose what they want to do. I don't know, but it just seems moving forward from where there was no electronic stuff, where there was no ability to collect data. There is data there. A lot of them are on federated models, and that doesn't work in 2022, right? So it's about changing. It's almost like, can we be change agents collaboratively? I'm just putting that forward.
I'd like to think yes, but I'll throw it to Jason. You put your hand up there.
Thanks, Nikki. Just to add on to that too, from my perspective, with a lot of the data stuff, I'm involved with a lot of organisations, from veterans from the US, Canada and Israel, with a lot of the new things that are happening over there. So we're conversing with these guys quite regularly. I think one of the big reasons, and club grants and all these other things, people are scared to throw money at things that are unproven. So all this, we don't have data at the moment, but we've got a lot of concepts out there and a lot of initiatives. It might be also worth mentioning that we've got a lot of data from overseas. Other Western countries have been dealing with these issues for the last decade, 20 years and beyond, and they're advanced from us in a lot of areas. Pulling some of their data is not a bad thing to create a model for us to then apply to these club grants and to these DVA for, and even Open Arms. I know Open Arms also have a subsidiary now that are looking at new programs and things that they're looking at funding. We've got data from overseas that we can start looking at. It doesn't matter that it's not our data. If we're starting it off, we need to build from somewhere. So encouraging us to work with organisations overseas is going to be incredibly beneficial. And some of the organisations already, we've got some crazy programs that sound really outside the box, but are kicking ass over there. So the more of them that we can kind of introduce over here that are a bit more outside the box, we might see a little bit more success there rather than repeating the same practices over again, expecting a different result, which might be cool.
Isn't
it? Yeah. Michael, your comments?
Thanks, Nikki. I was just going to say that the data problem's a gnarly problem. It's not easily solved. I have a bit of history in sort of trying to solve data problems, and sometimes not always well, I guess. But anyway, the first is that, a leading comment would be that we recognise that we probably have, with our 7,000 widows that we've enrolled across New South Wales, the 300 plus beneficiaries with disability and the 200 juniors that we support, we recognise that we're probably only touching about 30% of those that are actually quite possibly entitled and could be enrolled in legacy. And that's an extraordinary figure and an extraordinary statistic. And what that would indicate, very much what Rhondda was saying, was that we're not actually getting to the people who could benefit from, not all of the people anyway, who could benefit from what we do. And so that's the first issue. There are publicly available data sets which can be mined, and you can look at and you can pull apart and aggregate and start looking at some clever analytics around, to Rhonda's point about how you find these people and you actually reach out and obviously engage. It's not always easy. I think there's always the issue that we will struggle as service providers, is that and my poor old mum gets, sort of her ears burnt all the time. When Mrs. Ducie gets enrolled at Legacy and she shares her data with us, it's basically personal health information and comes under the same auspices and control as privacy information. So she still controls that and owns that, and needs to provide agreement that it's to be shared amongst other organisations or other entities. And in the government context, they need to be named. And you can't just say that it's being washed out there amongst all of the ESOs and BSOs. So there's a degree of control that she would have over that, but it also is something that we need to wrestle with. It is a problem for us, for sure, that we need to work through. And I think if we think about putting the customer at the centre, one of the things that has to be addressed in that is, how do we share information, and how are we going to make sure that we've got the right Mrs. Ducie rather than the wrong Mrs. Ducie, so to speak. And I think that one of so it's identifying where the people in need are and trying to get them engaged. That's the first challenge with respect to data. The next is obviously, how do we solve those problems through data to be able to create an efficient and optimised service model that is supported by all ESOs and BSOs. And the last, I think, which is really important is, and I think this is going to become increasingly important, and it's very much what Jason was talking to, is actually looking at the outcomes from programs. We need to make sure that we're actually very focused on the social impact of what we're doing, and being able to leverage that, even in the early days, the data sets that are available from overseas, and looking at the efficacy of programs and the benefits that come from those. We've got to really start shaping what we do in order to be able to demonstrate the benefits and the outcomes in a really, really strong, transparent way, because my suspicion is that there's going to come a point when government will not want to talk to you unless you can actually demonstrate the benefits of what you're doing. And we've got great programs that are so well-meaning and have such a big impact, we know, and those all are well-intentioned and well-purposed, but the reality is, unless you can actually hold up and say, this is the outcome that occurred as a consequence of this intervention and this program, and this is what occurred, we're going to struggle to maintain the conversation.
Just, I might jump in real quick there, Michael, too. Just on that too, you've highlighted something that we've identified down here as well, and that is the medical inconfidence thing is what makes it really difficult, because as soon as you're talking about any of the health stuff, it gets a closed door, and then we've instantly lost that information, which is, again, one of the models that we're setting up now, is that veteran-centric model on the medical side. So part of DVA's new programs is they've got a coordinated veterans care program. So encouraging a GP to then take on a coordinated case where they would then manage the case,
right,
which would alleviate a lot of those problems. Because if we've got a GP at that central point, that medical side, they would then farm out to us to be able to do, or for you guys to do the legacy things, and for other organisations to provide other support. And that way, that GP continues to kind of capture that data, because it's all medical. It's the crazy thing is it's all medical. Like, dudes, we need welfare and all these other things, but if they don't have their base level doctor thing sorted for starters, you're really trying to fix it up at the top end. It's just never going to get under control.
All right, I might just keep going here because we do have questions in the chat. We've got one here. We collect a lot of data with outcomes, with half-yearly reports. What is your view on self-reported data? I think we've kind of touched on that, but can I just make mention about centralised data? Are we proposing that that's where we want to lead? Is someone going to take control of the centralised data? Do we all report in? Is this a peak body activity, for a better term.
Rhondda.
That would be under DVA though, wouldn't it, to do some kind of authority like that? And then beyond that, it'd have to be the doctors that are volunteer, because that data thing is huge. Like it's a very big bag. That's why it doesn't exist, because it's like defence. They have these problems time after time. They've got 6 different systems I think they've used in the last year and a half just for their own data. And we've then got civilian systems on top of that. Unless you're creating that full model, maybe there can be a sharing system that we've able to capture. I don't know. This is a challenging thing for anyone. And I know that Jackie's worked on this for her.
Community of practice. Let's go. Share standards, professional standards, charters, peak bodies. Let's talk about it. The political landscape.
I think
that's the thing.
Rhondda.
I think there's a couple of things. We're not looking to share intimate data, but if you think about, there's another step to this. It is, we've seen through ESORT and meetings that we're having, and DVA is telling us they're talking with Defence, right? But I raised, not because I raised it, I think everyone would agree with it. Why isn't Defence coming and speaking to the ESO? So we know what they're doing. And, Wade Stoddart's doing some really good work in the joint transition that he's working with. But when I spoke to him and heard what he was doing, I said, mate, why don't we all know about this? So it's about information first that we need to have, right? And then we can see, and I see it as one door. The first data was how many comes in, how many's looking for information. It's just a simple data. It may be thousands. It may be, I don't know. And then where do they go is another data. It's not personal. Where do they go? Do they go to legacy? Do they go to the bodies on the ground? It's not, we just need to start to have look, I'm a very simple person, as I said. You guys are educated, but think about it in a simple term. Just how do we simply do this and let it filter through? And it could be the number of people that come in and where do they go?
Okay, well, Rhondda, if this was working well, what would it look like for you?
Well, then there'd be choice for the veterans, because as they come in, they can see what's available. I mean, some of the things that you wrote up about the organisations during today was fabulous, right? And I thought, oh, that's interesting. I might go and have a look at that. I didn't know that was existing. And I did send a text to Jackie and saying, can I get a copy of this at the end, because I didn't know. And, I think that's where we don't have to make it complicated. Go back to the boss report and see what she says, and then see how we can do some simple stuff.
Outcomes. Outcomes.
Yeah. Can I just, you've both kind of just mentioned it, but there is a model called outcomes-based accountability that allows you to actually report on those, and you can demonstrate that you've got shared outcomes without actually having to go into personal data, but it demonstrates very strongly how people can work together and create the right outcomes for veterans and families. It's a really well used model. Jason will know it's been used in the UK, it's been used in the US, and it's really one of those models that governments really like, because it demonstrates outcomes, not necessarily just numbers.
Mm-hmm. So can you just put that up on the collection so I can go and read that? What you were talking about?
I will do, yeah. I'll get,
or send it through to Nikki.
Yeah, Jackie can sort that out.
I think it's going in the chat right now.
Yep.
All right.
I'll send you the book link, Rhondda.
Sorry?
I'll send you the book link.
Well, yeah, you know what I'm up with that sort of stuff. You'll have to help me open it.
All right. Jackie, you're watching the clock. What have we got? 4 minutes?
Yeah, 4 minutes.
Okay, so 4 minutes. Where to from here? So today has been an epic day of sharing of information, introducing ourselves to each other, learnings, teachings. Margot, it's working well. What does it look like for you?
I think, like everyone said, it's keeping veterans and their families at the heart of what we're doing, and, keeping our eye on a prize. I think Stephen Covey, in his 7 Habits of Effective People, says, let's think with the end in mind. And so The end in mind is success. It's veterans and their families getting what they need and kind of getting rid of all the politics and bureaucracy and everything. So I think, you know, if we're doing it with the right intention, putting egos to the side, I think like Rhondda mentioned, and doing our best for the people that need the support.
Brilliant. Michael?
Good question. I think it's a perfectly fitting jigsaw puzzle where all the pieces come together and deliver a really impactful view, basically, which obviously is support to veterans and their families, with each piece being integrated, connected and engaged with each other to be able to support and pass the veteran or the family, the beneficiary through that process, and to be able to do that as effectively and efficiently as we can. There is scant resourcing. So the next piece would be scant resourcing, and it's got to go a long way. And it's not going far enough, we know. So the reality is we've got to get better at how we work together and collaborate. And
Absolutely.
you know, there's hurdles we've got to get through, but they're hurdles. They're not brick walls and they're not cliff faces, you know. So we've just got to talk and work our way through. So we're in a position where, you know, we can make sure that we are doing more with what we've got, because we need to work every day on the assumption there's no more. And we've just got to get better at what we do.
I agree with that.
Yeah, and I'll just make mention that Jackie's just put there a book for us all to read. Trying hard is not good enough. There you go. It says it all in the title. So we've got a lot of work to do in this space. But Jason, if it's working well, what does it look like for you?
I think it's a good thing to reflect on the fact that defence is a reflection of civilian society. And in the same aspect, veterans and what we're dealing with medically and all these other things is very much a reflection of today's society. 1 in 5 Australians are on antidepressants. We've got health issues out the wazoo. We're segregated as a society. I think the veteran community is the community that we should be able to bring this together with our community and our whole connectiveness, and hopefully provide that information and that data for the wider community. If it's successful, it won't be veterans and first responders that are benefiting. It should be our whole society.
Exactly right. Jeanette?
Well, I'd just like to say that it has been a fantastic day, and one of the things that's come out for me has been the focus on not just veterans but relationships. That, you know, the foundations of relationships will make a huge difference to how a veteran manages his transition. So understanding that they don't come without other things, other people around them, and that we need to be cognizant of that when we are working with them. So it's really important, again, that we work collectively to be able to make sure that we meet the needs of children, parents, spouses, you know, all of those things, all of the things that we've discussed today. That's what Sarah called the missing link, and I think that that's really important, that link starts to be really locked in with everything that we do.
Rhondda?
Oh, look, I think this is outside the circle again. If we had a book list that we should all read, and a bit like a book club, come back and pick out what we think are the best things, and you know, it's all there. I agree with everybody. I think it's all there. We just got to get it. We just got to find it, right? And I think this sort of stuff is really good, Nikki. Thank you. It's been awesome. And it's just being honest and sharing. It's not hard.
All right, so.
And thank you for having me as a panel.
Well, thank you, Rhondda, for joining us. But community of practice, we need to set some goals, because this discussion is definitely not over. I think it was ambitious to think we could get it done in 45 minutes. But as a group, what are we committing to? We're going to meet again. So what will we talk about next time? Jason, go. Give me a topic.
I'd love to just give you guys a roundtable update, I guess, on, again, my passion at the moment is this medical things. We've got some incredible new medical services available in Australia. I'd love to be able to share that with you guys and let you know what's happening on that kind of front and some of the successes that we've already had with the veterans receiving these new treatments. I think that'll be to get out there.
All right, Michael, what's Legacy up to that we can report back on? Oh, you're on.
Technology glitch. We are to talk to touch on what Jeanette was saying. It's actually really about being able to measure outcomes. You know, I am passionate about that. You know, there's no point starting on a journey if you don't know where you're going. And for me to be able to speak with the most impact and the best outcome, I need to be able to do that in terms of the benefits to our beneficiaries and the difference that we make. So our next journey really pretty as fast as I can get everything moving is to do exactly that and to really sort of understand exactly what the outcomes of our programs are, to be able to share that with people and be able to really advocate on behalf of those programs delivering outcomes for our beneficiaries, you know, because I think that there is so much good that is coming from what we're doing, and it's just being able to put that into the right language and the right terminology, and the things that Jason is doing, obviously very deliberately or ahead of us in many respects, is the right approach, and one that we're obviously running at as quick as we can.
Fantastic. Rhondda?
Oh, I was just writing down the name of the book.
At our next catch up, we're going to hear about handy billing, I'm sure.
Well, we call it HOPE now. Help one person every day.
CARS.
Say?
CARS page.
I didn't catch that.
CARS package.
CARS page.
Hope. Look, I think there's some interesting things happening. It's interesting that we're coming into election. There's millions of dollars being thrown around. I don't really think in the long run, without data, that helps a veteran or a family. And I think, again, from the Royal Commission, I agree with the women or everyone who spoke about families. When you hear the stories, and we've all heard them, it is the children. I mean, I've got to be careful how I say this. The veteran's gone, right? We can't do anything more for him or her, but we can do for the families and particularly the children. And I think that's somewhere where we need to concentrate. And I don't have the answers, but I think the interesting thing about the Royal Commission for me anyway is, as I said right at the beginning, they didn't know where to go. We've got to fix that in a short term because the services are there, but they don't know where to go. And that's a reflection on all of us, I think. Not one individual, but all of us. And congratulations to everyone that they're doing stuff. I'd love us to get together on a regular basis, just having a chat every month or 6 weeks or something for a couple of hours. Let us know what you're doing. Where can we look into? Where can we send it across? And we can talk about it, but unless a group of us do just one thing in collaboration and show that we're prepared to do that, I think that's when we can go to the government as one voice and say X or Y. And we agree that perhaps what I'm doing is not right, but what Michael's doing, we need to all come behind that. And we all go and want to see the government. We all talk about it. But what about doing it together?
I'm all for it. I don't even know why we're not doing it, to be honest.
I don't either.
Shake my head. I've lost Margot. Is Margot still with us?
Yeah.
There you are. Sorry, my screen's changed. But Margot, let's get together again. What are we going to hear from about RSL and clubs next time?
Yeah, look, for us, I think it's about getting people into clubs, connecting with everyone. Like I said, there's all the facilities there. So making sure that we're connecting as a community and with veterans and families, and also those employment opportunities, like I said. So considering a career in clubs, because as a community and an employer, we are intimate with the opportunities and challenges that veterans and their families have, and also welcoming veterans into sub-branches as well. So
And can I just add one other thing? It's about not forgetting about our older veterans, because there are a lot of those. And I think this is the younger veteran. I think that's very good. But there's a lot of issues that should be policy issues that would help our older, particularly women. You know, the discretion between, for instance, just quickly, is that when a widow goes to go into a nursing home, her pension is counted as income. When a veteran goes to go into nursing home, it's not counted. Or the difference under the different acts of the amount of money that you get when someone dies. There's a lot of policy work to be done there as well.
All right, Jeanette, you're going to get the last word. We're 7 minutes over.
Well, I would just say that, you know, it's an opportunity for us to actually use an outcomes-based accountability model by doing a joint project or, you know, piece of work, and then showcase it to DVA, government, and show them that it works, that by having this opportunity we can make a real difference.
Veteran Centres in. We're doing it. All right. Can I just say thank you to everybody who has participated today. Thank you to our panel for joining us today. I know you're all very busy, and just to have you with us, it's been so insightful, and I've learned so much. And can I just say that tomorrow is my 2-year work anniversary at the Veteran Centre, and it has been 2 years of getting out there and meeting people and learning from you, and it has been just amazing today to bring all this together and introduce the wider community to our peers. So thank you, and go back to business.
Thank you, Nikki.
And we'll bring you back together very soon, so you're not off the hook just yet.
Thank you.
Well,
Take care.
Nikki,
Have a nice
thank you.
weekend.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye, everyone.